Hello, everyone. We'll get started here. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session, the Universal BI Portal, the missing ingredient to your BI strategy. My name is Charlene Willis, and I'm with Opal Group, so I'll be moderating today's event. Before we jump into today's presentation, wanted to go over a couple of items for you. We are recording this session, so that will be shared with everyone after the session today, and we will be sharing the PowerPoint slides as well. So before we get started, I'll do a brief introduction for you. Today, you'll be hearing from Marius Moscovici, CEO of Metric Insights, and Igor Vasquez, Senior Manager, Global Procurement Analytics and Strategy with Mondelez International. So Marius has over 20 years of experience in analytics and data warehousing. Marius is the CEO of Metric Insights, the leading provider of a BI portal that helps organizations organize their BI environments and ensure users are getting the actionable data they need. Igor, our second presenter for today, leads global procurement analytics and digital transformation at Mondelez International. Igor has over 15 years of experience in performance management, data analytics, and leading global multicultural teams. He is a global leader and collaborator who is passionate about data analytics and has worked for companies such as Mondelez International, Accenture Consulting, PepsiCo, Walmart, Target, Cargill, Motorola, and FedEx. So without further ado, please welcome our speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Hi, everyone. It's Marius. So today we're going to cover in our agenda, basically an overview of the current state of BI, discuss why BI portal is needed. Igor is going to share a little bit about the Mondelez journey relating to the BI portal, and then we'll provide you a demo of Metric Insights and wrap up with Q&A. So I'm going to start with a statement that may seem a little bit controversial. I'm just going to say to you that your BI environment is a mess. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've never met you. I've never seen your BI environment. So how is it that I can make that kind of just off-the-cuff statement? Well, hear me out. Imagine right now what's happening in your organization. There's probably, as you're sitting and listening to this webinar, there's an analyst out there that is sitting with a reporting request that he has from the business, and this person is looking out and determining, how do I support this requirement? And if this individual is diligent, then he or she is probably going to look and see, geez, is there a dashboard or report already out there that comes close to supporting this requirement? Let's imagine that this person looks and says, yeah, okay, there's something here, and it's maybe 80% of what we need, but there's some columns not here in this report, and there's a definition. It's a little bit different for how we compute this key metric that this user is interested in. So now they're presented with a conundrum, right? Either option one, they can say, okay, well, who's using this report? Maybe there's 8 or 10 or 20 different people that have used this report over the last few months. Got to get them all into a meeting and have a discussion and try to figure out if adding this content to the report, modifying the dashboard, changing this rule of how this particular metric is computed is going to work for everyone else. So that's sort of like option one. Or option two, this analyst is going to go File, Save As, duplicate that report, and then make the changes and ship this new version of the report to the new business user, So you and I both know that 99 times out of 100, option one will lose to option two. File, save as will always win over calling a meeting with 20 people to try to figure out if some change can be made. So given that happens, and given that happens all the time with one analyst, and then multiply that out now by the number of analysts you have in your organization, simple reality is that over time, every BI environment, no matter where it is, will tend towards chaos. There will be just a situation where there's just a lot of clutter, a lot of duplication, things that are obsolete, and then that generates a mess. This is actually compounded by the fact that for a typical business user, when they're looking to get their analytics, it's not just one place that they need to go, right? Most organizations have multiple BI tools. There's SaaS products out there that have reporting inside of them. And now that user that's trying to figure out what they need to go, well, geez, where is it? Do I go into Salesforce or do I go into Tableau? Or is that a MicroStrategy report? There's that whole cognitive load to figure out where they should find that content. And then once they figure that out, then it's finding the content. That's yet another step. So the net result is that your users, they get overwhelmed. There's just too many dashboards, too many reports, too many tools. And it's just too hard for somebody who maybe can only spend a few minutes on analytics a day because they've got a job to do. That casual user, it's really hard for them to figure out how to use the content that's given to them. And the fact that they're overwhelmed, there's so much content, causes a lack of trust in BI. They don't know if the thing they're looking at is the right one, or is it that other one that looks just like this dashboard, but it's very close. Which one should I trust? And the lack of trust, that means that, well, I'm just going to ask the analyst for the answer. So now you get this long queue, instead of self-service, you get this long queue of people that are sitting waiting for an analyst to answer their question because they just don't trust the things that they find to know if it's the right answer. And that lack of trust then results in low usage. So time and time again, we see so many customers where their usage of BI tools is just abysmal. 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50% of their users are actively using the content. Whereas the majority of the licenses that they have for their BI are going underutilized. And so as the BI team leader, you're faced with a situation where you look at and you say, well, I'm not generating the ROI for the tools that I'm spending so much money on. Millions of dollars in most organizations goes into the BI infrastructure. And at the end of the day, just a fraction of that generates value. So how does a BI portal clean up this mess? Well, there's a few things that it does that are absolutely critical. First, a BI portal catalogs everything into one place. So user does not have to know where to look. They don't need to know which tool it is. They don't need to know which report it is. They can just come into the portal and they can find the content that is actually curated and is valid, and they know that they can trust it. Second thing it does is distributes content to users. So making the content available to people is only the beginning of the journey. The fact is that if you are relying on somebody to log into a portal every day to find their information, or to go to log into a BI tool every day to find their information, you've already lost, because people just don't have that much time. So a good BI portal should distribute content to users so that the things that they care about are sitting in their inbox or in Slack or in Teams or wherever it is that they like to consume it whenever they need it. The third key ingredient part of this is that a portal needs to uncover critical changes. So if there are 20 reports or dashboards that I typically look at, what matters is which dashboard should I look at today that's going to tell me something interesting, right? I don't want to go through every one of my dashboards and change every one of my filter values just to find that one dashboard and one filter combination that has something interesting to say. I need a system that will tell me where to look. And then the final piece of the puzzle is the BI portal helps the IT and the governance team monitor usage and manage costs, right? Figure out, okay, where is it that BI tool utilization is actually paying off, and ensuring that not only do drive increased utilization, but make sure that there isn't wasted resources going into underutilized areas. In other words, we're not paying double the licensing fee that you should for your BI tool when really only half your users are using it. So with that in mind, before we go into more details and where I show you some examples of how we implement a BI tool in Metric Insights, BI portal Metric Insights, I wanted to give Igor a few moments to talk about Mondelēz and their journey in terms of acquiring a BI portal.
Good afternoon, everyone. And let me switch really quick to a quick presentation that I have for you today. So Mondelez, I hope by now you may have heard of Mondelez. We are a global company, we are really focused on biscuits, and hopefully everybody can see my screen right now. And Marius, just let me know if you don't. But We are in net revenue, we have 26 billion. We're a $26 million company. We are around 150 countries around the globe with 80,000 employees. Our key brands, you may have heard of Oreo, I'm pretty sure. But not only that, right? We have Milka, Philadelphia, Trident, Toblerone, and some local brands as well, such as Lacta, Social Club, Enjoy Life, etc. So we are, really everywhere in the world. We're very focused on biscuits and chocolate, gum and candy, and some beverages. As we get into this journey into what's next and really attending the needs of the market, we're focused on growth, execution, and culture. In really what Marius was mentioning is, how do we put all that together, all that information together in one place that it's really relevant for our organization, and really not just providing a high level overview and what this means, but also, really produce insights that are really relevant for our people, easy to understand, easy to find, and really make sure that we're leveraging a platform that it's sustainable, that it's scalable, and that it's really attending the needs in a very agile manner, right? So I just wanted to mention that because that is, to what Marius was mentioning, the key of a very efficient BI portal, right? Some of the strategic challenges that we've had is, we are such a global company. We work in different regions, in different BUs, and they are all responsible of their own productivity. And sometimes we need to collaborate and really understand, at least in procurement, who is our suppliers? How are we collaborating with them? How are we ensuring that we're not only, identifying saving opportunities, but also avoiding costs, not only for us, but also for our key suppliers that, we need to ensure that we're collaborating and really making that relationship efficient. Also, as we put all that together, how do we ensure that we are leveraging each other? What we know in China, perhaps sometimes we need to know that in Europe, so that we are not, going in different paths with the same vision. And then also, taking some decisions, even though we might not know all the data or all the insights in our fingertips, but also, being consistent with what it is that we want to achieve, right? So those are some of the strategic challenges. The analytics challenges, obviously, metric definitions is something that is very highly important in a global organization like ours, because if we have a very clear visibility of how we are tracking those key KPIs, we're all going to work together towards achieving our expectations. The other thing is, the more we need to manage, and this goes and it applies to different functions, and whatever you do, the more you need to manage, the less efficient it is, and the less time you have to really focus on being efficient, right? Really focus on absorbing and really understanding, where do I apply the value? Because the more difficult it is for you to manage data, the less insights you're going to get out of that data, right? So I think the lack of insights and the standardization of reporting is also key. We sometimes have different understanding, and being such a complex organization and working in a very, very agile manner, it is very important for us to communicate very clearly what those expectations are, right? So if we have not a place where all that information flows, then also it's very difficult for us to be efficient and effective what we're trying to achieve. And really, adding to those two layers, we have the complexity, as I was mentioning, of being global. We have 14 business units that we work together with. We have 850 users, at least in procurement, that are consuming our data. We have, 20 billion-ish in spend yearly, around 25,000 suppliers that, and added to that, the amount of transactions and the information that get produced is big, right? So I think one of the key questions that we've been trying to answer are essentially four, right? We have lots of data, but where are the insights, right? As I said, you become more efficient, the less you have to do, and the more you get out of it, right? It's like any ROI, right? So the cost benefit is there. Why is it a one central repository so important, right? I think that that is one of the key questions that you need to ask yourself, whether it's within a function or as an overall company strategy. Why is that important, and how can you make it work to your benefit? I talk a little bit about the standardization and collaboration and efficiency across different groups for different objectives, whether it's sustainability, commodity pricing, in our supply performance tracking. All that comes into one place and really allow us to be agile. And I want to focus on being agile because many times we think about developing of a product in an agile manner, right? I think this is more about, if you start looking at it through a business lens, being agile is really being efficient and coming up with adapting to the world that we live in. I mean, things are changing, and I think the portal is important because it allows you to change things once and provide that information across the globe, right? So I wanted to focus a little bit in these two questions, right? Why is an analytics portal so important for us? One, we're able to personalize the content on the insights. Many times we've heard that many of the reports that we have, one, do not have sufficient information, and two, it might really not be relevant to the work that we do. So essentially, those reports become obsolete or really are leveraged not in full capacity, right? So really understanding what reports we have out there, understanding how we catalog those reports, how do we make it more efficient so that it's one place where we can say, hey, this is where I go and where I find the information. It's really important, right? So the personalization of that is key. The other thing is the categorization of the information. Whether you're supporting understanding of your spend, understanding of your supplier relationship management, your cash management, your operations, all this, just imagine having it all together in one big ocean of dashboards, right? It's very difficult for people, even when they are very savvy, data-wise and analytically wise, it's not easy, right? The more you mature, the more insights and the more reports you come up with is great. But at some point, you're not only faced with one platform of analytics, you may be bringing some other things on top of that, right? So very quickly, you start seeing this complexity exploding, which is fantastic. But the best way to really make sure that people are leveraging and adopting and really getting the benefit out of all that effort is by, again, putting it together, categorizing it, very closely managing what is the content, how do we make this, and how do we enable this to our users that will, one, leverage the value, and then two, be able to provide feedback to analytics organizations that will continue maturing these products to provide the most benefit. And then being agile, right? We're all going through this COVID situation. At Mondelez, the first question was, how do we give our organization with the insights that are relevant to help them react to this new situation, right? So again, that's something that as you are understanding the value and the power of a tool, all of a sudden you are faced with a challenge where you say, hey, we don't have this categorization. We are talking spend, cash management, etc., but we haven't really looked at every single angle of our categorization and put it together into one collection of dashboards and insights that will support a specific purpose, right? A specific question. So we did that. We did that even, with half of the world that we just launched this portal, and really it provided a lot of benefit, right? One, being able to centrally manage and put together that consolidated collection of insights, but not only that, immediately making it available to the whole world. So just imagine that in just a couple of days. So that's fantastic, because I think that is one of the key pieces that I wanted to reemphasize, at least in our experience, how having all this information organized in one place, relevant to the roles that we do in procurement, at least in my group, it's so beneficial. And I wanted to, leave you with this last slide, which essentially touches 4 points, right? I mentioned the word efficient for a reason many times, and it's because it is that, right? I mean, working efficiently, working via Zoom as we're doing it today, working, just making it easier for everyone. It is not the only one silver bullet that you're going to have to worry about, but it's a very big step forward into achieving that, right? Now, I don't want you to believe that, hey, I have a portal and my job is done and we're great, right? We need to really work into how do we make the content of this portal better, right? I think that is, as I said, the first step, because you start really quickly realizing that as you're putting all that together, you have a lot more visibility into what exists and what doesn't. And by providing visibility to what exists, you get that feedback from your organization where it starts making your products or analytic solutions much more mature and much more robust, therefore providing more value, right? So, and not only more value to your function, but also other functions start looking at, oh my God, right? I mean, they are reacting so quickly because they have that platform. The other thing about this is that you start influencing with real cases, with real life benefit, much of the change that you want to see in your organization, right? In our organization, we want to make our colleagues and data savvy, right? Leveraging analytics not only to provide all the information, but really to have them do their work much better. Again, right, that goes kind of like a virtual cycle in terms of increasing the awareness. One of the challenges in value realization is that few people might be aware of what exists. And when you start asking around, people might not know. By providing this visibility to one portal that is available to everyone, it can provide that visibility very quickly, right? You don't have to necessarily market this, but just by the mere fact that many of your colleagues in the world are adopting a tool that is so efficient, you just start getting, voice of your own colleagues and really providing that ability for you to leverage analytics. And then the other key piece, and this is really important, the data analytics ownership is one of the things that we are very much leveraging, because in many companies, at least in Mondelez, we see that many times we're looking at this analytics group as the owners of the reports. And that is a misconception, right? In Metrics Insights portal, we are leveraging very much the understanding of what an insights provides and who is the person that actually owns that process. So in my group, we work with these product owners, which are essentially bringing the subject matter expertise, explaining what do we want to measure, how do we want to measure it, and really ensuring that they are the ones that are the, who are providing and really influencing many users to adopt these dashboards and insights, because that is what they want to drive, right? The whole point about insights is driving action. And by driving action, you want to drive the action towards the place where you want to go to in a way where you want to go to. So again, the data analytics ownership is, again, another important piece of this, because as you may have experienced, many times we say, hey, what does this report have? Sometimes you might have somebody that will explain this really well, sometimes may not. And then beyond that, it's like, hey, I have something to improve on this, or what are the assumptions behind these metrics? And then we stop there, right? Or it's really hard to get to that owner. In Metrics Insights, in the portal, as you bring up the dashboard on the inside, you have it right in front of you. So all that is made available having a BI portal for you. So that's all I have. Marius, I'm not sure if you have any other comments in your experience with Mondelez, but I think that's all I have to share with you.
Thank you, Igor. That's great. And I just want to add, I'm going to show a demo now, but please put your questions in the Q&A window, and then we will, as soon as we are complete, we will go ahead and do the answer the questions at the end of it. So let me just a second, come back to my presentation mode here. Okay, so thank you for that, Igor. That was really good. And we're going to now talk a little bit about what you're going to see in the demo. So I'm going to show you how Metric Insights implements our portal. Basically here, this is kind of a high-level overview of what you're going to see. On the left-hand side, all the different BI tools that are in enterprise are there, and Metric Insights does three things. We organize your data so that all of your data and analytics are in a single place. We enrich that information. So we help you find what are the anomalies, what are the exceptions, what are the things that require your attention today. And then finally, we do distribution. We push this information to all of the users in the surface that is relevant to them, whether that be a portal page on the web, whether that be an email that they receive, SMS message, something into Slack or Microsoft Teams, whatever surface they're on. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right into the demo here. So here is the Metric Insights application. And in Metric Insights, all of the content that you have, every BI asset, is represented as a tile. And you can see here, I have all my different tiles. And the tiles can come from different sources. So I have here is a Tableau dashboard. Here's something that's coming from Power BI. Here, ClickSense, an Excel workbook from Office 365, Cognos, and so on. And we integrate with all of the major BI platforms through deep API integration. As a user, I can come in here and I can access all of my tools in a single place. If I'm interested in looking at a particular piece of content, I have information right here about it. So for example, here I can see when I mouse over the info tab, it tells me who owns it. I've got information about the latest value, a description. And then you can see here with this little checkbox, I can also identify what's certified. So certification is incredibly important. Igor talked about the fact that ownership is critical, and that you just need to be able to have that accountability, and users need to be able to know what they can trust. So some of our customers will choose only to put certified content on the portal, and that's and others will say we'll have a hybrid set of content, but it's always important in all cases to know for when a user is looking at it, what is certified and who certified it. This particular is the business owner who vouched for the fact that this logic is correct, and there's a data source owner and a technical owner who are really responsible for making sure that data is in place. And we provide a number of tools around certification to make that process and workflow really easy. So if I'm interested in seeing more, then all I have to do is click on this tile, and then I get to see a preview. And this preview is provides an image. We take snapshots of all the dashboards. We integrate with security and all that to make sure that you only have access to the content that you should see. But here you can see that I get to see a preview that represents what the image really looks like as of the last time that we collected the data. And then if I click into it again, I can now consume that dashboard either natively directly within that tool, or in this way within Metric Insights. So you can see here, this is shown within the Metric Insights application, but I have the full interactivity of the Tableau experience, of all my dropdowns. But in addition to that, I also have things such as documentation. So I can include release updates, or if somebody changes this dashboard as a user, I can be notified. Something will flash and say, hey, there's been an update to one of the business rules, and I can find out about it right there. I also have the ability to set filters for my dashboards and set a bookmark if I wish to do so. And then down here, as I scroll, you can see an analyst who maybe knows something about this dashboard can provide the latest commentary about what it is that has transpired with the data. And there can also be a rolling commentary of viewers of this with collaboration around that information. So this allows you to consume all of your content, no matter what it is. It has this sort of the same consumption experience. So you don't need to worry about, is this Tableau, is it MicroStrategy? You're going to work with it exactly the same way. So going back to the homepage for a second here, a catalog view, you'll notice that all of this information is also, categorized. So if here I've got all the different categories in which this content would sit. Every piece of content falls within a particular category. I have folders where I can curate pieces of content from multiple categories together and share them with groups of users. Perhaps you want to give your executives a list of the top KPIs they should pay attention to across the entire business. Create a folder for that and put those in there. And then also my favorites, things for which I found and clicked on a star and designated as interesting to me. And we'll talk a little bit later about how that comes into play. And then everything here is, it's tagged, so I can filter by specific tags and it's categorized and so forth. I also have the ability to search, right? If I've got a lot of content out there, obviously, search is very important. And as I open up the search window, you can see that I can, the common search terms are presented to me here. I can also type, sales analysis in here. Let's say I'm looking for some kind of sales analysis. If I hit return, I'm going to be taken to a page where now I'm going to see all of the results that match that. And I can ask a natural language query in there if I want. It can be as a formal question, or I can just put terminology in there. But I can see it's looking across tags, across description, name. It's showing me all the content with preview images for all the things that I have, irrespective of which tool it is. There's a Spotfire contact, there's Quick View, all in one place. And I'm also able to search. If I want to set it up this way, I can actually search into the repository of those tools. So if I do want to maybe surface only the most useful information directly in the portal as tiles, but I want to make it possible for people to find the things that I didn't bring into the portal, I can make that available via search. So there can be one place where users can search and find all their BI assets, whether they be, tiles in the portal, things that are sitting in there outside of the portal somewhere, as well as, things in Denodo or PDF documents or things on SharePoint, wherever it is, your users have a single place where they can go and find that information. So, and then you can see, obviously, there's different filtering and things that we can go from that. So we've looked at this for a moment now about, kind of this experience here. So the admin experience, I have a gear here. I've got all the categories. I can look at that information. But let's look now, let's shift gears and let's look at what this looks like from a end user experience, perhaps somebody who has less content. So now, this is a browser for a user that's opened up here that is not an admin. So they have fewer, this Avery, she has fewer categories because she's limited in scope and what she can see by the security model. You'll notice she doesn't have a gear here. She can't edit the content. And then, but she still has favorites and folders that apply to her. She also sees here any kind of announcements that are relevant to her. So one of the challenges, we talked about trust at the beginning of the webinar. One of the things that generates a lack of trust in organizations is when, Tableau dashboards don't update or your MicroStrategy pipeline doesn't work properly. And then you're still showing people reports, but they contain data that's a day or two old. Well, in the case of a portal, you can announce to people immediately whenever there's an issue. So these announcements can either be manually entered when a user comes in and they want to, an admin can say, hey, I know something's going on. Let me put it out here. And only the people that consume that content would see it. Or they can even be automatically generated. So you can imagine the process behind the scenes that is looking, and as soon as if Tableau system is not updated by a certain time, will generate a message. So that assures that folks will know what's going on. This user also potentially has her own preferences. So when a user clicks on this Tableau sales analysis, I'm able to come in and if I click on it, I can actually see, even in this preview image, you might notice that this has pre-filtered data for Canada, which is this particular user's preference. And if I click all the way through here, I can see that, automatically this bookmark has been set and the user's starting in their pre-filtered environment. And this might seem like a small thing, but it is so important. You've got a user community. Typically, if you look at your casual consumers of information, they'll spend 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes at most working on analytics in a given day. So you just have to make it as easy as possible, and making it possible for them to bookmark, open it with that bookmark, and then, or even potentially presetting that bookmark based on a mapping so that it creates the easiest experience possible is a huge value add. Coming back here for a moment, you'll notice that there are other objects here. So in addition to these different reports, there's also a possibility to add KPIs. Your business users often want to know the high-level numbers before they go into the detail. Metric Insights allows you to pull these KPIs out of your dashboards or out of your database, and then a user can see, here's Canada daily sales. It's stoplighted red. It's down. There's other things that are green. They're in good shape. If I click on it, I can see a preview of that. If I click on it again, now I can see a chart where I've got, the time series information. How is this performing over time? I can look at a statistical view, which automatically pops out the anomalies, those data points that you see outside of that reddish band. You can see that there can be event markers that tell you, hey, here's the things that happen. So there's all this context that I'm getting looking at this chart. Here's when we ran promotions. Here's when there was an outage. And there can also be annotations. So if somebody knows why something went up or down, click on a data point, put that information in it, and then it's there, saved for posterity on that KPI. And then finally, there can be alerts. So you can see I've got this alert marker. These alerts can be sent to me. And I can either automatically generate these alerts based on volatility, or I can come in here and add my own alert by comparing to a fixed value or prior values, or looking at volatility levels, comparing to targets, things of that nature. So all this information then, combined together, I get the high level view, then I get to go into the details. And then there's a number of ways in which we can now, once we built these, we can combine it all together, right? So you can think of all these things that we've now added to the portal as like these little Lego building blocks. So for example, if I click on the sales management tab here, you can see how I've got all of my KPIs at the top. I can flip between daily, weekly, monthly, and see how they're performing. I can scroll down. I can see here some exceptions that Metric Insights provides for major changes that have occurred, where there's a high degree of change from yesterday to today. So there's alerts I want to look at. And then I've got, here's my Tableau dashboard that is fully interactive. As I scroll down, maybe I've got a Power BI dashboard. So if there's 3 or 4 or 5 things that a user wants to look at, they're all there in one place. It's either through scrolling or through tabs. They can get at it in a single glance. Another example of this that's useful, maybe you just want to pull all of the metrics that you have all together in a single place. So this provides an example of that. So here I've got all those KPIs where I'm showing, both the announcements that I have on my page, as well as, how each KPI is performing, stoplights, how it's compared to last week or target. And from here, I can click and go into the particular object that I might want to analyze and look at further for further depth. So, a lot of different capabilities for different ways that things can be combined together and can be worked on that. Now, finally, when I have these different blocks, I can also take them and I can do the distribution. We talked about that as a key pillar of the platform. So imagine I've got my favorites. Now I can receive an email that would look like this. So here I've got, I get up in the morning as a business user, get out of bed. The first thing I see is which ones of my metrics are actually trending in a significant way. Which ones of the maybe 10 or 20, here's the 3 that actually have the highest level of volatility. And below that, here's all of my KPIs that I might look at and see how are they performing today versus, historical trends. And then below that, I've got everything that I put in my favorites. This is my Tableau dashboards, my Power BI, my other tools, and they're all in a single place. And again, if I want to see more, I can click and from here and go directly to that dashboard and start analyzing. But in many cases, that might not even be necessary. Just by simply glancing at the dashboard, I might know which of these actually I need to pay attention to and which I do not. Similarly, I showed you the alerts a moment ago. I could get an alert that looks like this. Here I'm told, hey, something's going on with Canada. Sales are up significantly relative to history. And here's my dashboard, pre-filtered with Canada. So all of this allows for user in just a minute or 2 or 3, they can immediately take action with the right thing. So with that said, final thing I want to show you is a little bit about usage. We talked about how it's really important to be able to look at how people are using the content. So putting all this content into the portal allows you to get insights into certain information. It's hard to do otherwise. So here's an example of how we do that. So we pull all the usage information from the underlying BI tools, and combine that with the usage information we have within Metric Insights as you're clicking through the portal, as you're clicking on emails, as you're clicking through to find things. And we can tell you things like what's most popular, what's increasing in popularity, what is unused. So if you've got a number of things put on the portal and a lot of them are no longer being used, you probably want to deprecate those because it's generating clutter. And what's decreasing in popularity? Maybe these are things that should be promoted or maybe modified. And then for any given piece of content, I can X-ray the usability for that content and I can actually see how it's being used. So here, just explain this for a moment before I play it, you're going to see a time-lapse view that shows how over a 1 day, 30 day, 60 day, and 9 day window, how this particular piece of content is used by either users or groups. So in this case, it's a user view, and you're seeing which users are coming in, looking at that content and just sticking around. They're looking at it every single day, and which users look at that content and then just gradually over time sort of fade out. Maybe that was interesting originally, but it's no longer relevant. And you can imagine looking at this, analyzing it at the group level, looking at groups of content, you get a whole different level of insight into which content you need to keep in the portal and how you need to modify that content over time. We do the same thing with we do this at usage level. We can also do this at the user or group level. So I can come in and see, what are people searching for? What are they finding? What are they not finding? As well as look at a particular user and identify over time how that user is using the content that is out there in the portal, right? So the same kind of idea. And then these usage metrics, they can actually be used even beyond just the stats, because what you can do is you can now see with my usage, you can say, well, how am I using my licensing? So this looks at, all the different licenses you have. This is how much you're spending on your licenses across different levels of license utilization for your BI tools. You can now analyze and say, well, who are the users that are not using the system at all? And then identify potential savings from that. Who are the users that maybe I'm paying for content creator type licenses, but in fact, they are just viewing content. Those are potentials for downgrade where I can save a lot of money and still give them the capabilities that they need. So that was a quick overview, and I wanted to leave some time for questions. So let's shift gears now and go into the Q&A area. So let's go. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so let's take a look and see what questions have come in. So what metrics, this is a question for you, I think, Igor. What metrics do you use at Mondelez to measure the success of your BI portal implementation?
Great question. I think one of the things that we've been, implementing is understanding to just your last comment, right? How many people are using which dashboards? I think the purpose is the same. We do have 850 people in procurement. And what we want to do is a couple of things. One, ensuring that we are getting the penetration results that we're looking for. We want everyone to have to go to the portal and at least consume, 3 or 4 insights relevant to them. So that's one. And the other one is understanding which of our insights are being used. Not every single insight are used for every single group of people, but I think as we understand each one of the personas, and this is something that I didn't really necessarily focused on, but we identified around 15 personas in the whole procurement organization to understand, based on their role descriptions, which dashboards they needed to look at, right? So I think that will give us as well input into what we need to put in a persona to make it visible to them, and therefore driving that adoption, essentially giving more people what they are looking for, and then also understanding how much a specific dashboard is being used. As you go through time, you're going to see that specific focuses are going to bring people into leveraging specific insights. And as they, lower in prioritization, you start seeing, that trend going down as well, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's good or bad. It's just that dimension in terms of timing, it's important, right? So I think just so those considerations are taken into play.
Okay, Igor, there's another question, and maybe you can address this. There was a question about how different is this from SAP Analytics Hub? I know you looked at SAP Analytics Hub, so do you want to take that one?
That's a great question too. And really, it depends, right? It depends on what your business case is. It depends how you're seeing your company in the next 2-3 years and where do you want to focus. I think in our case, what we really wanted to make sure is that we had a portal that would be very flexible and that will be compatible with many different platforms. I think, Marius mentioned Power BI, Click, we use Tableau a lot. That is one of kind of like our preferred tool of choice that we go and really ensure that we're leveraging that platform because it's something that it's supported. But again, right, it really depends on what your company wants, with where the majority of your insights reside, and how are you looking into leveraging the portal, right? I mean, we are looking into leveraging the portal not only within procurement, not only within supply chain, and not only internally, but also externally. So, and the flexibility of this portal was, in terms of metric and size, was a very critical decision point for us, because we didn't want to be too specific within SAP, even though we're an SAP shop. But our analytics are created in Tableau, will essentially be created in other platforms as other organizations create these insights. But also we wanted to bring all the other initiatives that where the information is coming from to click directly to that, right? So that ease of adoption and integration was very critical for us as we prepare for the future.
Thank you, Igor. That's a great answer. There was a few other questions. Let me see some I think I can ask. Can we integrate with Looker? The answer is yes. We have a plugin that connects with Looker. Where can I access a list of the tools Metric Insights can integrate to? I think that's available on our website, or just reach out to us and we'll follow up with you and we can give you more information. Here's one good one for you, Igor. How many resources are needed to maintain the taxonomy, permissions, note roles, etc.? All the maintenance needed to keep this relevant to users?
That's a great question. Many organizations are getting leaner and leaner. I think in terms of efficiency, you need to think in terms of what the business needs, how are you going to govern that, and what are the technical needs, right? So if you look at those two ends, one, you want your users to be supported, and one, in terms of understanding the functionality, what's available, how to use the portal. So we have a couple of people supporting that. The other piece is in terms of global governance on what content you want to bring in. We have a team that are working together. We're three main key drivers on this. I have a counterpart on our IBS, our IT organization, that works with me to really understand, what the content should be, how it is that we need to organize that. But we really go towards the business and understand, understanding your persona, understanding what contents you need. We start collaborating and really leveraging that subject matter expertise, right? So I think that is the other group that it's important to have, because definitely you need to have ownership of what contents goes in, how are we ensuring that the data is being leveraged how you want, and then you have also the technical piece, right? We also have a support group that this is not necessarily just exclusive for the portal, but we leverage a couple of other resources in cases where there is upgrades or there is some downtime or any issue that can be resolved from the technical side, capacity, performance, all those things also is important to consider as we get there. And then, beyond that, and this goes to my last point with regards to how do you empower people and really leverages the subject matter expertise to bring adoption is your network, right? I mean, we call them, it's kind of like an extended network of people that are driving the change of this analytic culture. And really is understanding what are the key categories, how are you addressing your business, where does your analytics focus on today, to have representatives for each one of those areas. So again, from the business side perspective, it's also important that you have a network that supports that.
Thank you, Igor. Only have time for 2 more questions, so I'll answer these. If there's anything that you didn't get to answer, please, we'll follow up with you afterwards. One question in terms of security, the security of users managed within the portal, as well as individual applications. So the answer to that is the portal is synchronized to the security model typically that you have within the application. Usually that is performed through Active Directory LDAP integration. Once you click through to see the content, whether you're seeing the content in Metric Insights live or whether you're going directly to that tool, you are then governed by the security model of the underlying BI tool. But almost always there's synchronization between the two so that you don't have to maintain a second security model within Metric Insights. Second question was, how are release notes managed? Are they populated from the underlying BI tool or not? So the release notes typically don't come from the BI tool because most BI tools don't have like a very mature way to track release notes. What we've seen customers do, either you can put the release note directly in Metric Insights. You can just upload a PDF, associate the release note with that object. We have the ability to do that in our editor. Or if you prefer to maintain your release notes in your wiki or in some other external system, you just associate the release note as a link. And then when you click on that note, it will go out. And then the good thing about those release notes is they let you know what's changed. Oh, okay, one more, I'll ask one more. There's one last question. Can I also control the dashboards which we see based on security appearing on portal landing page? Yes, so that's a really good point. There's actually 3 tiers of security access, and we can get into that more in the follow-up for anyone that's interested, but there's the ability to restrict access so you don't see content at all. And then there is ability to, of course, see content fully. And then there's this discoverable content where you see kind of a fuzzy image, and then when you click on it, you can request access for that content from a process that then will grant you the access. So with that, let me hand back to Charlene. Thank you all for participating and for all your great comments and feedback.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Marius and Igor. Thank you again to everyone who joined us. Again, Marius has his contact information on the screen for you. And then this entire presentation will be shared with all of you after the event, as well as the PowerPoint slides for you. So that's all we have for you today. We hope to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us.